name is Nicolette Gilbert. I'm a nurse practitioner. I just graduated from nurse practitioner school in last December. So I've been an RN for over 10 years. And I love being a nurse, but I love teaching nursing more, right? So I started doing tutoring since 2012 officially to get paid, but I've been tutoring since 2007 while I was in school. So it's something that I enjoyed. Actually, I didn't join the nursing program because I wanted to do bedside. I did it because my aunt was like, you need to eat. So I'm just being real and transparent. You're going to see my style. I'm very open and transparent about who I am and what I'm about. Anyway, so while in nursing school, I didn't really like it as much because my aunt was a nurse for many years and she was such a darn good nurse that she did over and beyond. And it kind of made her suffer a little bit because she was just too caring. So I thought, like, that's not the life for me. Anyway, so when I actually got into nursing school, I started doing well enough that I did really great. And my teacher was like, Nicolette, could you help these kids? And I'm like, okay. And then when I started to do it, I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do for my life. Like I loved it. I love the theory. So what you're going to get from me is that passion and that understanding because I've given my life to that. Like I've always wanted to be a teacher, and then I became a nurse, and now I'm a nurse teacher. So it's great. Let's get to the actual topic of today, right? That we're going to the notes here. So these notes here, if you want the full length of the notes, you see like it has fluid and electrolytes, blood and disorders, neurological disorders, oncology, psych, nursing, all of that stuff, right? If you want all of it so that you can kind of get ahead of your class, you can go ahead and purchase that and you have the nursing notes. Nursing is nursing, right? Every school has a different teacher that gives a different flavor to it, but it's the same context and the same content. You go to any state, any country, and you're still going to do nursing. In the same way, any nursing textbook will give you the same nursing information, but just spoken by a different person. So if you want the notes ahead of time, go ahead and go into here and on Thinkific. So then how do we intervene? Like, what do? We're going to look, we're going to see, all right, well, we got to weight them. Now, I want you to remember this. The most important way to measure someone's, fluid imbalance is with their weight, right? You're going to weight them every morning and you're going to weigh them in the same attire or without, whatever. And to make sure you're going to wait same time, same clothing. And that's how you're going to measure whether or not they've lost weight or gained weight. Okay. So same time, same clothing on. So that's one of the most important ones. So on your exam, you might see weight, client daily or monitor INO. The most important part is the weight daily. Okay. Then it's monitor INO, seeing how much they take, how much, giving them more or whatever, right? Then we're going to replace the fluid. Okay. There's an important part to here. So there's different kinds of fluids to replace for replacement. There's, as you can see here, there's a lactate ringer, there's normal saline, there's also D5W, there's D510. So just a little bit about that. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see it all. So the normal saline is 0.9%, and that's important, right? Because our body, if I check my saliva, if I check my normal flora inside my body, that is the measurement of my internal space, my body. And that's important because when we see later, there's a shifting of fluids that happens when it's not the same. So if you just want to increase the fluid level, what you're going to do is you're going to give this person normal saline. Lactate ringer, you can give them as well. That lactate ringer has a little bit of protein in it, I believe. So depending on what you need the person have, 5-dextrose has a little bit of sugar because dextrose is sugar. Now, 10-dextrose is something that you don't want to give unless the person has like a dire need for sugar, right? And like hypoglycemic type stuff, because it's so much sugar that you don't want them to go to hypoglycemia after they're done. But since we're on the topic, I might as well say that the idea behind that too is, let's say the person was on something like TPN, because that's part of a fluid that you give. That's a total, all the foods that they need to survive because they can't use their stomach is in that TPN. When you get off of the TPN, because there's no more or something happens, you're going to give them the 10-dextrose because it has so much sugar, which is equal to the amount of sugar that's in the TPN, right? So these are some of the things that you can administer. But definitely remember that normal saline is the optimal one to give, because all it does is it increases the amount of fluid. There's no shift, right? There's no tonic solution, hypo, it's not hypo and it's not hyper, it's iso. So it's the same as the body. So there's no shift in fluids. And we'll learn about the iso and hypo and what that does too. Okay, so fluid volume excess now. So the great thing about nursing, right, is first, no norms, right? So I recommend that if you didn't do anatomy well, that you kind of go over your anatomy, because you got to know the norms. You have to know the norms so that you know when it goes awry, when there's a problem, right? And yes, you will be able to see this afterwards. Someone just asked if we'll be able to view this afterward. I'm gonna keep it on so you'll be able to see it afterwards, and you can go to my YouTube channel as well. So when you're able to, what was I saying? Sorry guys, I got lost. My train of thought. What was I saying? Oh yes. So knowing the norms is very important, because what nursing is when it's abnormal, right? You go to the hospital to a nurse when something's wrong, but knowing what's the norm will help you know what went wrong and how to bring it back to the normal. And so the great thing about learning, and this is what I recommend, I teach people, I tell them all the time, listen, I don't want you to memorize anything if you can help it. I want you to learn it. I want you to understand it. And that's why I break things down the way that I do. I help you live it and experience it in a way that you will remember it, right? Because you understand it. Because if you're going to try to memorize all of nursing, I mean, good luck with that, because it's too much, right? But if you understand it, then it's much better. So I'm saying this to tell you that if you can remember and understand fluid deficit, then you don't necessarily have to memorize fluid excess, because it's just the opposite, right? So everything that happened in excess is just the opposite excess is opposite in deficit, and deficit is opposite in excess, right? And you can see that excess fluids, right? Kidney decreases, cough, dyspnea, crackles. Well, let's talk about this a little bit here, right? Because so the thing is, we said that our body, the organs, they all have to have fluid in them, right? And they all have to remain in the compartment that they belong in, right? If they're in the vessel, it's got to be in the vessel. If it's in this interstitial, whatever's there, got to be there, nothing more, nothing less, because it's a problem. Well, what happens when there's too much? It's like the body likes to share. It's like, okay, you know what? I have too much, so let me share. Well, where does it go to share? It shares with the places that has little, right? Remember I said that the cavities have a little bit of fluid where it allows for movement and expansion and ability for function, but it's not really like a floodgate of water trying to like, let's have a pool party. It's not like that. So when there's excess in the body, it says, well, since I'm suffocating right now, I'm dying of excess, I'm gonna give it to you. So the places it gives it to is the places that has a little bit. Well, like our cavity in the lungs base, right? And so here with the crackle, so if what happens is once the fluid starts to increase in the cavity, it starts to seep into the actual lungs, right? And it gets into the alveoli. And if you remember your anatomy, your alveoli is your place of gas exchange, right? We know you take a deep breath, that's nothing. That has nothing to do with breathing, right? That's all dead air from your nose to your alveoli, right? It doesn't start breathing until it hits the alveoli. Well, that's where the water might come into, and it prevents the exchange. Well, what's going to happen? It's like you're drowning on land, right? You're not in water, but there's water in your lungs because it's seeped from the cavity into the alveoli, right? And it starts at the base and it can grow. So, and that's a problem. So what are you going to find? You're going to have cough, right? Because you're trying to get it out. You're going to have dyspnea. Why? Because you can't breathe in water, right? And then your lungs, your alveoli are filled with water. And then the crackles are this, right? So when I breathe, I take a deep breath in, it goes into my lungs, down my trachea, into the alveoli, and it hits the bottom. Well, if the bottom is full of water, what it does is it goes down to the bottom, comes back up, and it pops. These crackles are popped bubbles, and you can hear them, right? That's what they sound like. Then you have tachypnea, right? We said that oxygen is in our blood. So when you don't have enough oxygen, you start breathing faster, right? When you don't have oxygen in your blood, you breathe faster. So everything has to do with the fact that there's not real good oxygen exchange. You're going to breathe faster because your lungs are not exchanging the oxygen. It's not putting it in your bloodstream. Your bloodstream, it's not going to your brain. Your brain says, I don't have enough oxygen. I was going to say dehydrated. Do not have enough oxygen. And so then it starts beating fast, breathing faster because it's thinking maybe I need to work more, right? So then the blood pressure increases, the pulse increases. And we just mentioned that actually with the fact that the heart rate also beats faster because there's oxygen in the blood. And since there's a lack of oxygen because of the water that's in the alveoli, so now it says, okay, I got to beat faster so I can get more oxygen and work more so I can get the oxygen, the little oxygen that I do have, to the places that do not have it, okay? So that's why blood pressure increases because it's pushing faster, right? Pulses increase because it's working harder because there's not enough oxygen. And that's noticeable in the blood because blood carries oxygen and it feels a lack of it. Hematocrit, we mentioned before, we said it was going up. So this way it's going down because now there's more water. So it's not like there's less production of blood. There's just more water compared to the blood that's there, right? You get headaches because, again, oxygen is not getting to your brain. Weight gain, fluids. Okay, so something here that I know for sure, I've seen it once, I've seen it twice, I've seen it a lot of times that you need to know. Anyone that has excess fluids, sometimes it affects your heart, definitely, right? Because they have heart failure and things like that. But it could just be because of some other disease or whatever, right? But your weight is very important. And something that they'll tell you is monitor the person to see how much they've gained, right? 5 pounds in a week is not good, right? If the person starts telling you like they're swelling, their rings can't fit, their socks can't fit, these things, you got to take notice of that, right? Their face is not, is swelling up. Like, the thing is, listen to your patients and realize that what they're saying is, legit, right? So weight gain is there. Increased CVP, central venous pressure. We mentioned that the same way it decreased in the other one and increased in this one. Flush skin, redness, and because remember, the blood is working fast, right? The blood is working a lot, right? So it's gonna work to the surface, right? And so that's why there's flushing there. Late signs. Okay, another thing, another concept I want you to remember as you study, as you learn. Always notice late signs compared to early sign. They love to test on that because it's important. It means life and death. When a patient comes to you, or you come to a patient, you need to know, is there something I need to do right now, or do I have time? Is there something I need to do invasive because they're about to die, or do I have to do non-invasive things because I have a chance to kind of acclimate them to the healing process, right? So late signs is neck vein distension. So that's like when if I lay back, I'm normal, so you're not going to see this. But usually what happens when the person has a lot of fluid, their jugular vein, which is here, gets so engorged that it's visible. And sometimes it's not visible just by standing. So what you do, you have them lean back 40 degrees, and as you lean back, and if you do that in your chair at the moment, you'll feel that you've allowed pressure, right? And it takes a bit of straining, and that will make it pop. So neck vein distension. So now you see that there, right? We didn't mention it in the other one. So now if on your test they say non-distension or flat veins, then you know that's the answer. If it's on deficit, right? Then we have tachycardia. We mentioned that. Pitting edema, right? We know what edema is. Edema is a swelling because the interstitial fluid is filled with blood that's fluids that's not supposed to be there. Well, it can be pitting or it could be non-pitting. Pitting means I put my finger and when I let it go, it stays. Non-pitting means it's still swollen. I put my finger, I let it go, it bounces back up, but it's still swollen. So pitting is usually worse because that means the fluid is so close to the surface that, God forbid, give them a day or two, it's going to start oozing. And you guys, like, when they told me that, I just didn't believe it until I actually was in the clinical site where I had a patient that had liver disease and they were like in the end stage, right? And when we learn about liver disease and things like that, which we will at some point, right? We'll see these things. There's called weeping that comes after pitting, depending on if you don't resolve it. And this person, when you look, it looks like perspirations, but droplets of fluid just oozing from their pores. That's how bad it is. So it can be super bad. And we don't want that. For more information on how to register for classes and get help from our tutoring center, visit www.gab-nicnursingtutor.com. That is www.gabnicnursingtutor.com. To view our free or paid classes, sign up on www.thinkific.com. That's www.thinkific.com and register for the pre-recorded classes of your choice after searching for the Gab-Nic Tutoring Center uploads. We offer in-person tutoring and Zoom calls. You can also find us on YouTube for more free classes and tips on how to do better in nursing. We are also on Facebook, where we upload articles, tips, and tricks on how you can make your journey to becoming a nurse smooth and near effortless. Did I mention Instagram? Basically, we are everywhere. So check us out or call 917-602-9927 and we will tell you just how to join. See you soon!